Hello again, this is Mr. Kusaj, and this is part two of 4-4. So we're talking about transformations of the sine and cosine graph, right? We know what the basic one, right, the parent graphs look like. So what happens to those basic ones when we put numbers around? We already talked about what happens to the graph when you put a number in front. That would be the amplitude, right? So now we want to know what happens if you put a number here. How about here? How about here? Right? All the possibilities. So let's do it one by one. Period. What is a period? A period is the distance between repeat points, right? In other words, how long, remember you can pause and instead of trying to listen to me and copy at the same time, you can pause and copy first and then come back and listen. So a period is asking you how long is it from one point to the repeated point, right? So it starts here, and notice that it doesn't start repeating to here. So it doesn't have to start in the beginning. Just pick any point and tell me how long is it from here to here. Most people start at the beginning because that's where 0 is, but basically it'll be the same distance, right? So so this one would be from here to here. So notice this period is pi. From here to here is pi. Pi distance across. So the period here is pi. But here, where does it start repeating? Not at pi, at 2 pi. So here the period is 2 pi. But we're not going to draw them, we're just going to look at the numbers. So if you want to know what the period is for your equation, for your function, what you do is take 2 pi and divide by the b number. So whatever that b number in front of x is, whatever that number in front of x is, take 2 pi and divide by it, and you'll get your period. Okay? For example, so cosine x. Well, we know the plane graph, the period is 2 pi, right? So this would be 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. We already know that. But what is the period here? Okay. So we know that this is 1/3, right? Your b number is 1 over 3. The number in front of x is 1/3. So what is your period here? How long does it take to start repeating? I don't know. I don't have the graph. Well, that's okay. Do this. The formula. 2 pi divided by your b number. So that's 2 pi divided by 1/3. And if you use your calculator, 2 divided by 1/3, believe it or not, is 6. So this function here doesn't repeat until 6 pi. So one period, it takes it 6 pi to do one period. Okay? So I tried to draw it here. So here's the regular cosine, right? 2 pi, another 2 pi, right, etc. So every 2 pi, the regular cosine repeats. But this one, we found out that it repeats every 6 pi. So you got to do one cycle and stretch it out all the way to 6 pi. Now, I'm not asking you, I could ask you to graph it, but most likely the question will be, what is the period here? What is the period of this graph? Turns out to be 6 pi. Okay? The period. Okay, moving on. Frequency. Frequency means the number of complete cycles in a circle. How many can you fit in a circle? Okay? Excuse me. So notice, this is a complete circle. How many cycles do you have there? 1. So the frequency is 1. This is a complete circle. How many cycles do you have here? Let's count. 1, 2. I have 2 cycles in a circle here. So that means the frequency is 2 there. How do you find the frequency? It looks exactly like period, but the other way. The 2 pi's on the bottom. So the B number divided by 2 pi. Same number divided by 2 pi. That's how you get frequency. The other one was period. This is frequency. Okay? So, I put them together for you. Notice how they look alike. So the frequency is done this way, and the period is done this way. Notice that they're reciprocals. You just flip it over depending on which one you want. Okay. And what else? Do you remember what we're doing? So this number here tells you the frequency and the period. This tells you the amplitude, the stretch, the tallness, right? So we're moving on. What do these numbers here tell us? Well, phase shift. That's when you shift left or right. Right? I'm sorry. Phase shift. That's when you shift left or right. If it's a positive number, it's to the left. If it's a negative number, it's to the right. Right? So here's what I'm talking about. Right? So is this sine or cosine? This is sine. So here's the dotted one. This is the regular sine graph. Notice how this is shifted to the right. Okay? So how do you find the phase shift? That's where you use the C number. Right? So if you want the phase shift, it's negative the C number divided by the B number. By the way, you notice those bars there, that means the B is always positive. Okay? You always put the positive B there. Okay? So let's look at an example. So let's do all 3. All 4. The amplitude, the period, the frequency, the phase shift. So here's your function. Wow, look at all those numbers there. So, before we copy it, let's think back. What is the amplitude? That was the number in front here. Right? That tells you how tall. Oh, it's 1. So the amplitude is 1. There was no formula for it. You just look at the number in front of sine or cosine. So the amplitude is 1. It's 1 tall. What is the period? So the period uses the B number. The period uses the B number. Now, was it 2 pi over 3 or 3 over 2 pi? You got to remember. Right? How about frequency? It also uses this number. Right? So was it 2 pi over 3 or 3 over 2 pi? Phase shift. The phase shift uses the C number here. Remember what a C number is? The C number is here. Right? So the C number is pi over 2. So the phase shift is pi over 2 over 3. Right? The C number over B, and then the negative in the front. So let's write it down. Notice my A number is 1, my B number is 3, and my C number is negative pi over 2. Right? I'm going off of the very beginning. I'm going off of these positions here. Right? We didn't get to D yet. So, my amplitude, right, if it had a negative, you would drop it. My amplitude is 1. Right? My period was 2 pi over the B number. So it's 2 pi over 3. Okay? My frequency was the other way, flipped over. So just flip it over. Right? And my phase shift was negative C over B. So negative, my C is negative 2 pi. I'm sorry, negative pi over 2. So it's negative pi over 2 over 3. So if you do the math here, this is like 1/2 divided by 3 is 6. Okay, and the negatives cancel. pi over 6. Okay, so basically we're just following the formulas, but they're not really formulas. They just tell you which number goes on top of which number. Okay, so now the phase shift is telling me that I should shift, right? Shift to the left. This is positive, pi over 6, so a little bit to the left. Okay, we'll talk more about the actual graph shifting. Right now, you're just finding the numerical values. Okay. Vertical shift. This is the last number, the D number, right? This is sliding up and down. The whole graph slides up or down. And you guessed it, it's the D number, but this is what it looks like. So this is the parent graph, and if I shift it down, the whole graph, right, just shift it down. So this would be the new midline. This is the original midline, but if you shift it down, then the middle is here, right? So this is a vertical shift, but it's down. And how do you get the vertical shift? It's that D number on the outside. Remember? This is the last number. This number all the way out here, that tells you if you have to shift it up or down. So D is going to be the middle line, right? So if this was a shift down of 2, then this is not 2, this is 2, right? Okay, so here's an example that I try to do. So sine x, right, there's nothing to worry about here. There's no shifting left, right. There's no amplitude to worry about, nothing to worry about. It's the regular sine x, except it's the regular sine x graph, except it's shifted 2 up, right? So here's my regular sine right here. So this middle line shifts 2 up, right? So now instead of drawing my sine graph here, I draw it here. So this is the graph of sine x plus 2. This is the graph of sine x plus 2, right? That's it. We've looked at all the possible transformations. Okay? So let's put it in one sheet. So imagine numbers being here. Let's call this number here A, this is B, this is C, this is D. Right? This is what we started with, but let's put it all in one page. So the amplitude is the A number. The period uses the B number, and you do this with it. The frequency also uses the B number, but you do this with it, which is, they're related, right? They're reciprocals. Period and frequency are just reciprocals of each other. The phase shift uses the C number and the B number, and it has a negative in the front. The vertical shift is that last number D. So I'll leave you with this one try problem. Try and graph this. So you know what cosine x looks like. Stretch it by 2 and shift it to the right by 1. I'm sorry. Shift it up, not right, up by 1. Okay, this is the D number, right? There is no C number here. There is no B number. This is the D number, so it's shifting up or down. All right? Do the best you can. We'll look at the answer in class. See you. Bye.